What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be going over an Amara build in Borderlands 3 that I've been playing for the last couple of days and absolutely loving. This is genuinely one of the most fun builds you can play in all of Borderlands 3. Like, I am having a blast, and the crazy part is not only is it fun, it's surprisingly effective. This is a melee build, but you can kind of easily, especially if you have a melee modifier on Mayhem mode, take down the vault bosses solo, just by punching them to death. Now, I'm not going to say it's the most efficient way. Definitely the one-shot kill Flak and Moe's builds are absurd. I made an elemental Amara build a couple days ago, and that takes down the vault bosses a lot faster solo, but, I mean, do you want to take them down or do you want to embarrass them, if you know what I'm saying? So, let's get started with this build. So, starting things off with the skills, firstly, our action skill is Phase Slam. Then we've got more overall max health because we have a lot of health regeneration. We have a ton of personal space. It gives you a 60% bonus damage up to, depending on how close you are from the target in terms of weapon damage. Then clarity, just going to increase your health regeneration. Super important for staying alive. Obviously, running a melee build, we're going to be in there in the thick of it. Then we've got Samsara, your gun damage and health regeneration depending on enemies you damage with your action skill. After that, this is super important, Helping Hands. You get up to a 40% damage reduction. Again, we're in the thick of it. We need this survivability after activating your action skill. So this will nearly last the entire cooldown until your Phase Slam is ready to go again. It's one of the best perks on any character, frankly. It's super great for survivability. Then Mindfulness. Now, this is personal preference. I feel like it gives you more survivability, but we have some synergies with the shield that you see in a bit when it's completely down, so I can see taking this off for something else. Importantly, find your center. After you activate your action skill, you get, well, in this case, 200% because of our class item. We'll go over that in a sec. Melee damage and 75% melee range. Absurd. And then we've got increase to max health and more elemental damage reduction, just survivability. Jab Cross is pretty darn good. It's going to increase your gun damage and action skill damage whenever Amara deals melee damage, which is all the time. Then Guardian Angel is just a nice little bit, like, you're going to go down, you are just going to go down running a melee build, so getting yourself back up automatically is pretty nice if the enemy runs around cover and you can't make it to them, for example. And then lastly, we have a melee override ability, which is going to do increased damage, reset itself, just an overall pretty good ability. Now, the green tree is absolutely the main tree we're using. The secondary tree is going to be spec'd into the red tree, and that's mainly due to this perk here, Illuminated Fist. Amara gains increased melee damage, and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element. In this case, that is Incendiary, but you can switch it to Corrosive if you really want. And that, I mean, it's just straight 75% damage bonus for a melee build. Like, you can't ask for anything more. Importantly, that synergizes quite well with Tempest. If you're kind of turning everything to an elemental damage, then doing more elemental damage, 30% more, is very, very important as well. We're also 5 out of 5 here for just more elemental statuses and stuff. Like, you're turning your melee damage into elemental damage, and so this will come up for sure. And that's really it for the main skills. Like, the rest aren't honestly too important. And again, the rest comes down to really personal preference. Now, moving on to the gear. The weapon I've been using, and frankly I actually quite love, is this redundant face puncher. So this thing just does so much damage for a single shot. It's 134 times 14. Times 14 is pretty darn nutty. And importantly, it comes with plus 60% melee damage. Now, I'm sure there's more melee damage increasing weapons out there. I haven't found any so far. You know, I'm still building this character. But this is quite good because, as you saw when we went over the skills, and as you're going to see in the background gameplay, we actually have a lot of synergy with gun damage. Now, this is a melee build, but you also have skills that increase your gun damage as you're dealing melee damage, as you're using your action skill. And so you'll see me just chunk enemies with this shotgun. Like, one shot is gonna deal so much damage because you've built up all this extra gun damage from meleeing everything. So having a weapon like this shotgun that can just output so much damage with a single shot has actually been very, very useful in this build. Then moving on from there, probably one of the best features in this build is the shield. We have the Brawler Ward. So this gives plus 25% damage when the shield is depleted, plus 300% melee damage when the shield is depleted, and plus 2% max health per second while the shield is active. And the best part is it is anointed, so on action skill end, 30% of all damage taken is returned to the attacker for a short time. So obviously we're using this for the insane 300% melee damage, and that's why I'm kind of iffy about that shield regeneration skill, because we kind of want this shield to go down. It improves our damage substantially. Next up, we have the class mod. This is super, super good as well. Amara gains damage reduction. This bonus is based on the distance to the enemy. The closer the enemy, the greater the bonus. So up to basically 30%, 1/3 of the damage dealt if you're right next to an enemy is going to be just taken away. And that is great for survivability. It also provides an increase to max health. Unfortunately, like, I wish this was shotgun damage or Hyperion damage as well. But really importantly, you're gonna want to look for one of these mods with the +1 to the find your center skill. This doubles your melee damage. Like, normally it's plus 100%. This makes it plus 200%. That is an insane increase. So that is really the skill you're looking for there. Moving on from there, in terms of grenades, this is kind of a random one. I think you can probably do better, to be honest. And then artifacts, this is actually a pretty good one for the build. So you're going to imbue melee with fire and add 80% increased incendiary damage to your melees, which is fantastic. And also, your melee attacks have a 30% chance to attach a sticky bomb, which you're going to see quite a bit in the background gameplay. Now, it's not an insane amount of damage, but it's just strict bonus damage over normal melees, so it's another great thing for this build. So, in terms of how to play this build to its ultimate effectiveness, what you want to do is firstly be using your action skill as much as possible. A lot of your melee bonuses trigger after action skill or based on action skill's damage, and also you're going to get that 40% damage reduction for 15 seconds. That is huge. When I do go down with this build, and again, you're gonna go down, but when you do, it's often because it's just in that short amount of time between when that damage reduction wears off and when your action skill is back up again. So even when you're fighting like a basic group of enemies, you don't necessarily see a higher tier like anointed enemy in the mix. Use your action skill anyways to open up that attack, and it just makes your build work so much better. In terms of fighting the vault bosses and so on, always like run in, lead with your action skill, melee the crap out of them, but also melee, shoot. Melee, shoot. Get some melees in and then get that massive chunk of damage from that shotgun, and it takes away a really big chunk of health as well. Another thing is actually don't shy away from the more powerful enemies. You're going to see in the gameplay, I take on anointeds and other things like super easily because you're chunking them for so much damage with your melees. If you're spamming melee, it often like stun locks them. Like seriously, they don't know what to do. So if you've been playing Borderlands 3 and decimating enemies with guns and the Lyuda sniper rifle and stuff like that, and you're getting a little tired of it, you want something fun, different, but still effective, still able to, take down bosses, compete in the end game, do the proving grounds, absolutely no problem. This is a great build to try out. It's just a great departure from what a lot of the other classes and even other builds of this character are doing. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Borderlands 3 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.